I just realized I don't have my mic plugged in.
Stranded Output.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Stranded Output. I'm Shane, your lovely host. So, as kind of a Linux nerd, I get asked a lot of questions about Linux, about using Linux, blah blah blah. And I don't know, I just thought I'd make this video for the person who doesn't really know if they want to use it or not, has some trepidations, perhaps. It's a very dramatic word. Number one, straight off the bat, for anyone who isn't familiar with Linux, is that it is hard to use or install. Straight off the bat is that it's hard to use or install. This could not be further from the truth. Okay, I will grant you, to install is super easy. Like, new versions of Linux, you can just, it's easier to install than Windows, I think. It's literally click, 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 click. Like, no programming, no configuration, especially things like Ubuntu and Linux Mint, which is derived from Ubuntu. You just there's no, like, there's nothing difficult about it. It is so easy. Now, perhaps getting it onto the media that you want to install it from, like say a USB key or a CD-ROM, is a little bit trickier if you're not someone who knows a lot about computers. But for the average everyday user, I think you can manage downloading a file and then burning it to a CD. I mean, there's plenty of free programs out there that burn ISO files or image files to a CD-ROM or a DVD, actually, in most cases. Likewise for a USB key, you can just download Win32 Disk Imager for Windows if you're a Windows guy, and literally just click, done. Pop it in your computer, turn it on, and you're good. Now, in some cases you will have to go into the BIOS and set your USB to set your USB as your boot device, but that's easy enough. I mean, if you have like a phone next to you, you can Google how to do that. I mean, it's not difficult, really. It's not as scary as you think. In terms of using Linux, my God, I find, especially with the recent versions of Linux Mint, it's easier to use than Windows. It's more straightforward, everything makes more sense, there's no cruft, there's no like little pop-ups all over the place, and there's no like fancy tiles that swoosh and swish, and it actually reminds you of old school Windows 95 in a lot of ways. Literally a taskbar, start button, here's where you turn off the computer, here's where you go for your office stuff, here's where you go for your audio player or your video player. It's super simple. Another thing people say is that, oh, well, if I install Linux, I can't use Windows at all, ever. No, not true. In fact, confession, I use Windows probably more than Linux these days. It's just when I need to do something a bit more daily, a bit more BAU, I will use Linux. If I just want to type something up, if I want to just browse the web, if I want to do everyday stuff, I will use Linux. If I want to play a game, I want to do some editing, then I will use Windows, but that's purely just compatibility reasons. I'm just literally having no good alternative on Linux. It's not perfect. What I get from Linux is that it's stable. I know exactly where everything is. It's simple to use, and you can just do more, I think. This brings us nicely to games. Everyone says you cannot play games with Linux. In fact, I think nowadays you could probably play more games on Linux than you could on Mac. You have a choice between open source games that were developed exclusively for Linux and are available through the different app stores, if you like, in distros, Battle for Westnoth, Tuxkart, things like that, just silly little games. They're fun, but they're not AAA titles or anything. You do have Steam, which now hosts a surprisingly large catalogue of Linux games, which usually install and run pretty nicely. In fact, I have actually come across some games that have installed and played way smoother and way more reliably on Linux than their Windows counterparts. Alien Isolation, for instance. Holy shit. It runs like a dream on Linux, and it fucking crashes every other time on Windows. 4. You need to be able to code. No If you don't even want to do it, you don't even have to go near the command line. It helps, but you don't have to. There are ways around all that stuff. If you're literally looking to just type up a spreadsheet or type up your CV, resume for the Americans, you can do that. I mean, it's super easy. You don't need to touch a line of code. You don't even need to touch the command line if you don't want to. And if in the unlikely event you do need to, then there are tons and tons of guides online. All you need to do is Google what you need to do, and you will get about 10,000 results telling you how to do that. For 5 is pretty simple. They don't even know it exists. They have maybe heard of Linux, maybe their friend uses it or something, but at the end of the day, they're not really sure what the hell it is. They're going, what's this Linux thing I've been hearing about? Well, I can't do much for those guys. Maybe that's the reason you're watching this video, who knows? But you should try it. I'll put some links in the description if you want to have a look. Some distros I recommend for different, I'll do like beginner, intermediate, advanced, if you want to take a crack at it. If you liked it, click like. If you didn't like it, tell me what you didn't like. Simple. Just don't be mean.